How's it going, everybody? Josh, KI6NAZ, coming at you. Special time, special date, Thursday, during the lockdown, I guess you can call it. There's been a lot going on in the last couple of weeks regarding remote testing or just testing in general for amateur radio. My inbox has been exploding with people looking to get their license, and they've asked me, where do I go? What do I do? Who do I talk to? Everything's getting canceled. It's been a huge thing. Obviously, you know this. It's important, and we're going to talk about it today. And while I have kind of been active in following along with the story, as probably all of you have, I've got Sterling Man on, the man, N0SSC. And Sterling, the reason why I got Sterling on is he made a blog post not too long ago talking about, and this was back in March 18th, basically saying limited remote VE testing available from the Anchorage VEC during the human malware virus. And that was great, right? So it got the word out, and that started getting some interest in what was available from remote testing. And Sterling's going to add some more details, but his blog is linked in the description. So is his YouTube channel. He streams daily. He's learning CW, or he's walking through his process for learning CW. And he's putting up some cool videos. He just did an antenna build video and showed his trials and tribulations of getting antennas on the roof, which is always fun. But more recently, he started posting more often as things have been evolving. And the world that we lived in 2 weeks ago regarding amateur radio testing and the world we live in now, completely different places. And so he's going to break that down a little bit for us. But trying to take in a ham radio license exam during the coronavirus, sorry, we're closed. Many blogs like that. Anchorage VEC remote testing results in a new extra remote testing working group underway. And so stuff like that is what we're going to talk about. So without further ado, we're diving right into it. Let me make sure I unmute him, or I'm going to get a lot of comments. Sterling, how you doing? You're looking good with your green screen there?
Yeah, I just set up not 30 minutes ago, and somehow, I'm looking good. Yeah.
That's great. All right, so you have been following this, I think, more than most for sure, and well before we were dealing with the particular human malware virus we're dealing with today, right?
Right. Yeah, from the very beginning, as soon as it became a national emergency, I think my first step I took was maybe some tweets here and there, but I was really looking for what was going on at the top. So VECs and in the NCVEC, the actual coordination body that manages the volunteer examiner coordination group, kind of the top level. And then you have the VECs and then VE teams and then individual VEs as you would. And I had no responses whatsoever except from Anchorage VEC because they already have a remote testing thing in place. It's just that they weren't ready for a pandemic and, not able to, basically cover for the entire country's amateur radio examinations for 14 VECs over all 50 states. It's thousands of people. So I just started blogging. I started saying, hey, let's get the word out. Let's get a group together. Let's actually figure something out and just do bare bones. Can we do this in Zoom? Checking the regulations, because everyone's well, it's not allowed. It's illegal or this or that. But, our FCC regulations actually wrote them in because of Anchorage's at the what do you call it? At the request of Anchorage VEC to ensure that remote testing is totally legitimate and cool. It all matters with the VEC or the VE team. It only matters if they are doing their due diligence, observing the candidates in their exam and making sure the test session is, operating correctly and they're being monitored and they're not cheating and all that stuff. And we'll get into all those details as we go on.
So let's go back to the sacred time of 2 weeks ago and the state of, I guess you could call it remote testing, right? And just for everybody following along, if you're completely new to this, a VEC is a volunteer examination coordinator. They're the groups that basically set forth the tests and the policies for how the test will be ran and how you take the test and how they submit your results, right? And then the VEs are the actual volunteers, the volunteer examiners that proctor the tests. So 2 weeks ago, if someone wanted to take an exam remotely or online, what was the option?
2 weeks ago, before this all happened, I guess even 2 weeks ago, the Anchorage VEC was the only option. And arguably they still are the only option
Right.
for remote testing. There is a big but, is that you do still need to have an in-person proctor, like
Right.
a VE, an amateur extra, like even a judge, a magistrate, a notary, a university staff, anybody to actually like monitor you in person to give them basically the warm and fuzzy feeling that you weren't doing something naughty and cheating and stuff.
Okay, good. You nailed it. That's why they have the
Yeah.
proctor there, so that they're basically watching you to make sure
Right.
you're not cheating, right?
Yeah,
So
but they do.
go
They
ahead.
they do have like already automated, like the exam is generated, and their documents are electronic, they're signed electronically, and they're submitted electronically. It's all really quick, and they have really fast turnarounds. It's just that they do need, like, they have like their VEs specifically trained for that software and specifically trained to look out for things, and that's what we're trying to like scale up into like a fully online thing, right? So even 2 weeks ago, now we're still kind of the same thing, but you have all these groups bubbling up, trying out different proofs of concept, and trying to stress test and come up with new ideas to do like fully online testing, given the current situation.
Right. So as I understand it, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, the Anchorage VEC had that option for people that were remote. They are in Alaska. So
As
if you,
in like very far away. Yeah.
like really far, yeah. So you still had to get a person there. So this doesn't help for social distancing or anything like that. As the today we live in now, it only would allow a person to go to the individual that wanted to take the test and help facilitate it, mainly to be that watchdog function, right?
Yeah, and for an example, like it would be for somebody who can't drive 300 or 400 miles, because Alaska's huge. And they were open to amateurs in the U.S. and Canada as well. So anybody who's, say, maybe disabled or also just maybe lives out in the middle of Wyoming, like they could also get a test. It's just that they would have to find somebody like from their local township or their general area to actually monitor the test and basically serve as that viewpoint. So
that's a good point. So you're saying that Anchorage VEC would also proctor tests or provide tests for people that weren't in Alaska as of today too, right? That's the status today.
Right. Yep. Okay. And that's how it's been since almost 2014.
Yeah.
But like I said, they were only able to test maybe 2 or 3 people a week. They definitely tried to do their best ability to do an in-person test, because they would prefer that. And I think we would still prefer that 2 weeks from now and even 2 years from now.
Wow.
But
real quick, Matthew Bergery and Fred Romeo, thank you very much for the super chat. I appreciate that. That means a lot. I appreciate the support. Thank you so much. So that's all good, and that's available today for those that can get access to that.
Yeah.
But that doesn't solve kind of the larger picture of, I think, where we would like to eventually go. So you made that blog post, and there's other things that happened at the same time concurrently. You made that blog post, and then there was some people on Twitter, right? Can you walk around that a little bit and explain kind of what happened? I guess now we're a week ago, right? At this point.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So I mean, it's crazy how fast it feels like it was a long time ago, because so much has gone by. But like, I definitely wasn't the first person, and I'm not the only person. Everything kind of just happened all at once. I just didn't see any kind of collaboration or kind of connection between these folks until about a week ago. And that's when I got added to a Twitter DM with the people, like just a bunch of people who are also concerned, kind of coalescing. And then there's also our Discord DMs that was coalescing at the same time too.
And that's eventually Sam Hulick, right?
Yeah, well, he wasn't in the DM until a little later, but he tweeted out to Ajit Pai from the FCC, and he's not a ham. He's trying to get his ham radio license, but he happens to be a verified Twitter user.
Right.
So
that helps.
So
I
it caught
guess
his attention very well, and he actually responded. Ajit actually responded, and I think that was about the time that he was in the chat. I could be getting my timeline mixed up, but I mean, it was literally centuries ago in terms of like timeline to me. But that really got the steam flowing. I put out the idea of like exam tools. Like I saw a video that Richard Bateman, KD7 BBC, he's the person who also builds signal sticks and hamstudy.org.
Yes.
He has developed a program that completely administrates and gives electronic examinations. So on a computer, to really streamline the whole paperwork process, because given, everything, the paperwork was a huge burden. That's why like licenses take 2 weeks, because they gotta literally mail paper around and type it in manually and do data entry. So he developed a program that streamlined that.
Really good point. Let's stick to that for a second. So again, 2 weeks ago, World, not all the VECs, but many VECs, I believe the ARRL being one of them, used to have hand copies of everything, and they would mail them back and forth for the actual application for the license after the exam was complete, right?
And they still do, and that's why like many VECs are pretty reluctant to change their procedures, because it's what they've been doing for 20, 30, 50 years or whatever. I don't know when the last time the VE rules updated, but I mean, ARRL VEC, that's what they have to do. Even W5YI, but they're going more electronic. Those are larger ones. LARL being like the faster one. They have a more streamlined process. But
I got word that the ARRL actually they are moving towards scanning or paperless. I guess you could eventually paperless.
Because imagine like I don't know how many people they license, but they definitely license the majority of hams, since they're largest. I think they have 1,700 VEs or something like that. Don't quote me on that. But imagine the paper, like they still had to do data entry manually for all of those people, and it's just a burden. So I think they're definitely modernizing things, similar to how we modernize with LCW or what's the QSL log.
A logbook of the world. Yeah. Fred is out of control in the chat right now. Good Lord, Fred. Man, thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you very much. I appreciate the support and everything. That's amazing. Thank you. I don't see any questions, but if you have a question, that's one way to ask it. We are watching the chat, but Sterling is so educated in this area. We're gonna let him talk, and then we'll check the questions at the end here. But again, Fred, thank you so much for. Man, that's awesome. Yeah, I'm just gonna buy all these medical masks now. I'll have medical masks stacked up for with all that super chat money. Okay, so sorry to interrupt you. So now we're about a week ago, and people on Twitter start talking. I got in on the DM chat kind of thing, and then it eventually kind of expanded into what is it? Bandcamp? Is that what it's called?
Basecamp.
Bandcamp
is a different thing.
That's for like actual performers, right? Yeah.
Yeah, Bandcamp is basically a collaboration center where you can do work.
Right.
It's there's chat, there's discussions, there's documents, and it's really good for just getting something done, getting things done. Unlike a chat where you just chat, this is a place where you can really silo conversations and focus on things. And that was spearheaded by Sam Hulick. He actually knows the CEO of Basecamp and got us like a full account so we could add it as many people as we wanted, and really got stuff going. And so I think there's 30 or so people on the working group. But really, I think you have Richard Bateman. He's updating exam tools in a way such that it will incorporate video conferencing and document signing and do all the things necessary. Because if I go back, and I made a Reddit comment on a recent Reddit post on Amateur Radio subreddit that kind of described it, that basically doing it in Zoom, and that was the team that actually did this first ever online exam.
Well, don't steal the thunder. We're going to get there.
Oh, yeah. I'm like all over the place.
So we get into Basecamp, and as you already mentioned, it's extremely focused. There's like, you can make to-dos, and there's project goals and stuff like that. And I felt that it was just like drinking from a fire hose. There was so many things going on.
Right.
You were hosting like talks, and people were just going, bouncing ideas off each other. It was the most like online brainstorming session I've ever kind of been involved in.
It was, same here.
Yeah.
It was incredible.
And then all these ideas started coming out. And one of those was, well, let's actually see if we can simulate something like this. And it required, testing software. And so I'll let you talk about the testing software for a second. But I want to remind people, there's all kinds of tests that are done every day for very important things. Getting your degree, getting certification to operate heavy machinery, all kinds of different licenses are all done online. Remotely online. So there is technology that exists to do this. And on the Basecamp group, kind of and I say we just because I was in there, I wasn't helping that much, but Sterling and the others there said, well, what can we actually do to prototype this? And so you guys did a prototype, and what was some of the details of that?
So it was run through Zoom, video conferencing software that everyone's using in the situation, right? And we used Richard's exam tools, which has been in operation since 2014. And we just used it basically bare bones. And what Richard had to do was we had an examinee, a candidate to test. He was actually ham prior, but his license expired. So he was just retaking it to get a new license since it expired. And what we did, we all got into a call. I wasn't in the call, but I saw the recording afterwards. With 3 VEs as well as a W5YI representative, who actually like was the person who would say thumbs up or thumbs down. Like, is this adequate? Is this following the rules? All that stuff. So we, had an actual real person from a real VEC to actually give the real exam. And I was just thinking we should do a stress test or a mock trial or mock run in Zoom and see if this actually works. But they were like, we can just do this right now and live.
We'll just do it live.
Other people have done it before, and like you said, there's many industries and in academia too that do remote testing. So they had Zoom up. They had one candidate. He was sharing his screen and his webcam, so we could look at his face and see if he was like looking around. We could hear from his microphone if he was typing excessively on his screen. So exam tools actually generates the exam. And it's a lot like a Google Docs form. So it's a multiple choice. You just click the answer, scroll to the next question, click, and then you're done. You click submit. It grades it automatically. And in the back end, it's also
conference muted. Muted.
It's also an administrative portal for the VE, and Richard actually had to get into or remotely connect through Zoom to control the examinee's computer to log into the VE portal and put in all the credentials and stuff, which was kind of kludgy, but it's how we had to do it then. To actually log in and generate the exam, and then the exam was generated. Never, the answers were never shown because it's like a cryptographically secure method, blah, blah, blah. Honestly, you could probably get Richard on if he has any time to kind of go through those details.
We might do that, but I want to remind people, just you keep saying the name Richard. You already mentioned it, but I'm going to mention it again. Richard is the person that does hamstudy.org. Yeah. So when you buy a signal stick, recommended by me, signal stick, signal stick that's available on Google, you can just search for that. You're buying that antenna is what's paying for things like this getting made. So he made exam tools to be able to do exactly what they did. So they created a prototype test. It was so well done. You can correct me if I'm wrong. It was so by the book that it was official. Basically, it was treated as an official test.
Right. So you had 3 people actually looking at the screen and the candidate's face all at once, and there were challenges though too. Because the candidate would be able to see the VE's faces as well if it's not minimized, and they could hear them. So if they can't communicate, they can't say anything to each other to talk about what's going on in license or deal with administrative tasks. They all have to be quiet for the entire test duration. They all have to keep a straight poker face, because if you see the candidate pick the wrong answer and ooh, that's that's bad. So and then there was just a couple other gotchas. I forget the details, but we used that as kind of a proof of concept. And the VE coordinator, the VEC guy from W5YI was like, yeah, that was great. Just catch, there's all these little gotchas, but we'll approve it because I saw it. And I forgot to mention, he took his laptop with the webcam and kind of showed the area just to prove he's in an empty room with no crib sheets and no extra computers, his cell phone's away. There's nobody in to interrupt and cause distractions and stuff.
Plus they're seeing his eyeballs. If he's looking, if he's looking away, keeps looking away, right? Then that's going to be a problem. Actually, I was reading today that there's technology that exists, and they're thinking about porting it into things like Zoom that would track your eyes. Oh, yeah. So if you're in a work call and you keep looking over to the website you've got, and you're like, yeah, all right, you're like watching porn when you're on Zoom or whatever. So that's a thing that could be technically adopted into this remote testing structure.
So that's one thing I didn't mention is in my original blogs. I wasn't immediately thinking about exam tools. I was thinking about just regular proctoring software that I've used in college. That does that. And it's just one webcam and screen share, and you have a person who sees all candidates, and if their eyes go off screen, it makes a little alarm for the proctor to be like, who's this? What's this guy doing?
Right, when they're doing something off the screen or off the field of view of the camera.
Yeah, and that could be a good approach. And I have a theory that the ARRL was looking to do something like this, because we heard from Jim Teamstruff on K6UDA. Yep. They said they were contracting something out And I could see in the AWS, because they have a large budget, they could afford third-party software like this.
Yeah.
But our software is designed to basically be open to all VECs if they choose to use it. This is not a replacement or anything at all. So anyway, like Zoom had some gotchas. Let me talk about exam tools and like what our steps forward are, right?
Mm-hmm. Well, real quick. Now that I got that for a minute, for everybody that's watching, we're not necessarily proposing remote testing replaces in-person testing. Not at all. I feel that whenever I've taken a test in person, I had a great experience. I love talking to the VEs. I talked to the other people taking tests. You know, we met each other. It was a lot of fun. I know multiple, not just VEs, but other people have brought up, you know, there is a certain person-to-person aspect of taking a test, which is great because you meet potentially other hams, future friends, maybe an Elmer. I don't want to take away from that. I don't think we should take away from that. But there are real situations, obviously the situation we're in right now, where stuff like this makes sense. And we should at least look at it objectively, I feel.
Right.
Yeah.
And
obviously you feel that way too, right?
absolutely. And I mentioned this earlier. I don't think this will be like the norm in the next few years, even in normal times. It is like the whole virus is the whole reason for everyone getting like active on it, so that we could try to like, because there's thousands of hams or potential hams or hams trying to upgrade, even tens of thousands. Who knows? I don't really know the rates or anything. Trying to get a license, but they suddenly can't, and so it's not really like we're not worried about amateur radio. There's no, in a couple months, 6 months when this passes, maybe next year, everything's going to go back to normal. And it's going to like it's never happened. It's just going to be in the history books, and ham radio is going to flow on. But it's an opportunity to advance into the future, like into things that just make sense. And I mean, we've already seen the FCC rules explicitly allow it, and with the Report and Order 1474. And it's just a matter of getting VEs up to speed. We've already seen countries like Canada and Great Britain, the RSGB. The RSGB just put out a report saying like, we have online testing. They've already had a process in place. Here's the whole procedure. You can do it. They only require, I think, 2 examiners. And I think I haven't read through the whole thing. I think they use some software. I think they use Zoom. And then I know that Canada, they use Zoom and they give the test orally. So basically the same process as you would for a blind person.
I would argue that the Canadian test in particular kind of more's on the line too with their testing, because depending on how good you score in that test, that's what opens up the doors to more power and more accessibility to the license, right? So we have a tiered system, right? Technician, general, and then there's kind of a bigger jump to get to extra. Great Britain and Canada, they've got different licensing structures, and technically there's more on the line, I feel, for people cheating potentially in that situation, but they've worked it out. They do remote testing, is what you're saying, right?
Yeah, exactly. And those are the only 2 countries I have at the top of my head. I don't know about Australia and Japan, but I'm sure they have to look into those more, but I haven't heard anything, right? But I mean, it's easy to catch up, and literally there's nothing stopping VECs to do Zoom testing. And I'm getting like rumors and bubblings of like VECs looking into different things. I saw some in the chat, like AWO is looking into this VEC is looking into that, but no one really knows what's going on until somebody actually publishes like, hey, come take remote testing here.
Great point. Let's break this down a little bit. The VECs are already authorized to do this. The guidelines have been put forth by the FCC, and I feel that they're not so stringent that we can't figure this out. This exists now. The FCC has made this possible today. They're not being held back by the FCC, meaning the VECs are not being held back by the FCC. Would you say that's true? Right.
Yes. And to the point, the VECs are holding themselves back. Like, for example, Anchorage, they have an in-person proctor because they're concerned that a fully online exam won't be surveillance enough. And so they do that just to make themselves feel better, but it's not required. The FCC actually really leaves it wide open. It gives the interpretation up to the VECs to define what is adequate. And so that leaves like the VECs a lot of power, but also a lot of like, I don't know what if we mess up? Will we lose our license and go to jail? Like,
do you feel that part of this reluctance to move forward is because one group just hasn't done it and said enough already? Let's just do it. Because once that dam breaks, it's on. I feel.
I think it comes like for amateur radio, especially with the demographic. I think they're waiting for advice from the top. And we've seen just today the AWO is not interested in pursuing like, remote license exams at this time, but there's other options, yada, yada. And so that kind of gives everyone pours water on the whole thing for the VECs. But then groups like us, where we're more akin to just what is it?
Begging for apology instead of asking for permission.
That too, moving fast and breaking things and begging for forgiveness.
Yeah. That's what we do. We're engineers, right?
we'll break it, but I'm not. I mean, we're being really responsible.
I know. I'm kidding.
Like, I don't want to get anybody wrong there. It's not like we're just like say, hey, I'm a VEC, just take your test.
Here, give me a check. Send me a super chat.
Yeah.
No, we're not doing that. We're not doing that.
But that does bring up a good point. I'm actually not too concerned about candidates cheating. Cheaters will cheat, and I think it's pretty clear to like see when that happens, and even if they're elaborate and they have like crazy, maybe a virtual machine, or they have like a recorded like pre-recorded face or just whatever, a person behind the camera giving out answers, or who knows. Yeah. Like, we're trying to think of all of the ways that they'll cheat, but I think one of the harder things to do is to train VEs to use this new software so that they maintain the test integrity as if it were like an in-person exam. Because VEs, like, they're also in the older demographic, and we have to get them trained onto how to use computers and how to configure software and how to tell the VE how to tell the candidate to configure their software and turn all their programs off and stuff. Because we're making software that isn't like a regular like an examination software that does all that for you. Maybe farther down in the future, but this is more of a bare bones approach. And arguably, I don't think
it's a proof of concept. Right. It's a proof of concept. This is a starting point. It just so happens that this particular scenario, all the variables at play, was enough to meet the certification for, yes, this is a valid test. That's not necessarily a one-size-fits-all solution yet, but it can be, I think, is the point we should learn. And this
just
is
like the second step.
You're right. Again, just to remind people, we were less than 2 weeks ago when this conversation started, and now end of last week, we had our first test, basically, through this Zoom scenario, through Richard's software, where it worked. Now, that's big news. Obviously, there's a ton of improvements and to-dos and all that fun stuff. But I feel like that's kind of the watershed moment where the other VECs are going to say, whoa, okay, we need to also look into this. Because the technology exists. Again, to remind people, the technology exists. This exists now. Anyone that was willing to go down this road could find it. The ARRLs, you're probably right. One of the ones that is probably going to be looking at it right now, or already has been, because they've got more money, I assume, to spend at it, which is good. That's a good problem to have. And they're sitting on a bunch of cash anyway, right? This seems like a no-brainer, right?
Exactly. But also, from what I hear, since AWO is such a huge organization, you have VEC teams doing or V teams doing all kinds of different things, and the coordination to get all that in a line is going to take a long time. And from what I've seen with Ria Jiram into RJ on Twitter, it might be 6-month process before they have like proofs of concept, beta testing, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Get a grassroots approach going. You have some basic software that does the job, and just unleash it to the VECs to use as they please.
Well, that's ham radio in a nutshell, right? Isn't that the whole point of experimentation and figuring out how to cobble technology together and innovating? Yeah, that is why we're hams. Yes, exactly. Okay. Exactly. So I don't know if you were on a point and I cut you off. Was there? We got more questions, but was there a point you wanted to hit before I go to the next thing?
Oh, I think I got most of the points.
You were
probably missing.
I didn't want to screw something up.
I forget where I was at, but I got most of my points out.
So
what? Maybe I guess I could say. Well, what was? You go ahead.
No, I was going to say. So, given where we're at right now, one, what would you tell people to do right now if they want to get licensed, which I know is not going to be a great answer that they want to necessarily hear. And then second, where do you think the future is going to be, maybe even before we all get out of lockdown? Do you think something might change? So maybe at the first one first.
So the first thing, if you're trying to get your license, I would, and you want to do this remote testing thing or get a test at all, first of all, some VE teams and VECs are still doing in-person exams, except they're doing like the spacing, the social distancing, the extra sanitization. I mean, a lot of us are still going to work and our companies are going crazy with like sanitization, but arguably that I would avoid that because 6 feet is a guideline, but I can tell you a cough can reach much further than 6 feet, and
Yeah.
you're also dealing with the demographic that is most, harmful. This virus is most harmful to the demographic of ham, since we're mostly an older bunch.
Right.
I would try to avoid those, but if say, I think someone said in the chat, if it's outdoors or if they have like they're in a gym and it's just like crazy space, then maybe that's okay. But I'm still like, nah. So the thing I would do is sign up with the Anchorage VEC, since their applications are open. You need to find a proctor before you actually submit an application. And if you live in a city, this shouldn't be too difficult. But I think if you were able, all you basically have to do is find an extra class ham that's in your area who is willing to be at your side and 6 feet away or more. To proctor the exam. There's a whole list of other people who can do that as well.
Okay.
And you can do that. So I also actually talked to Brandon Hess, who runs the Anchorage VEC. He's the chairman. And they said they ramped up their testing, so they only have a backlog of 60, but their estimate, their wait time is about 3 weeks. So if you apply and you get through and approved, you'll get a license in about 3 weeks and get tested in about 3 weeks, right?
Okay.
If that goes way up through say this advertisement basically, then that's going to extend. But I don't think they aren't looking for any VEs to come in and expand their program, just because they have a very a refined process that they don't want to touch too harshly, and while they're
Sure.
they're basically jiving right now. And then the third thing I would obviously say is wait, which is obviously what no one wants to hear, but it's a good time to
Yeah.
study. Maybe if you're going for your tech, this is a perfect time to study for your general, because you can take an exam, and if you pass the tech exam, you can take the general for
point.
free.
Good
So
point.
if you use this time to study for your general, you might get 2 for 1, or even your extra. If this might last for 2 months, and it took me about 2 months to get through the whole book, and that was like streaming through it, and like page after page of reading and teaching myself electronics. And
You reminded me of something I want to hit really quickly. I actually got a message from Rhea last night or the night before, and we might have her on to talk about this, to hear what the ARRL is up to. So if you're watching this, Rhea, she did mention though that Warren County Radio Club out of New York, and I'm on their website right now. They were planning a drive-through evaluation for amateur radio licenses. And the idea was that they'd have pre-set up packets. You'd drive up, you'd get the packet, and then you'd take the test right there, and then give the packet back, be graded on the spot, and go forward. So have you heard of something like that before?
No, this is
that's a good
totally
idea.
new to me. Yeah, that's a brilliant idea, and that's what's great about a pandemic, when you're stuck indoors and you can't do anything. That's a perfect example of like another innovation, and that's totally cool. Like, I'm not saying that's bad or anything.
No, yeah, I don't think. I think
great.
I want to remind everybody, we're all in this game together. Let's not cannibalize each other. Let's just find ways to solve problems that come up. This is a problem that came up. We're trying to solve it. Anchorage or Warren County doing a good job. Keep doing that. If you're doing the drive-through thing, of course, update your website so I can point people to it. I'd appreciate that. But I will put that in the show notes or the description, so you can maybe go find somebody if you're in that area and contact them. The problem is that means you got to be in a car in Warren County or something like that and drive over there versus just online, right?
Yep. Yeah, and I guess that would be some challenge, but they might get. I mean, it's numbers, and they're getting people licensed, so that's all that matters.
Right.
And like I said, there's no harm to ham radio. Like the human malware virus is not going to destroy amateur radio as long as people are socially isolating and actually staying healthy, because we don't want people to die.
Right. Well, I mean, ham radio by nature is kind of socially distancing, right?
Exactly.
Don't you want to socially distance yourself and play radio? I know I do.
Exactly. Yeah. And I guess the fourth thing I would mention too is, these things are starting. So you have this drive-through, you have possible new online exams coming from Exam Tools and the Richard KD7 BBC, the ham study group, basically. Who knows what's going to happen in the next couple of days? I think our software, I don't know how long it's going to take to kind of integrate. So we're using Jitsi as instead of Zoom as the protocol to connect because it's open source and we can change some things, but that would probably be kind of difficult. There's nobody with experience on our team that has Jitsi experience, but Richard's got all the he's developed ham study. And if you are, I wouldn't say all developers go rush him, but there might be a call for help on that. But for now, like, we're totally good, and we seem to be on the right track to for like at least a beta test in the next couple of weeks or so.
So that's a good point too. I will mention this. Our Discord for the Ham Radio Crash Course, we do have a private chat where there are people communicating with Richard for development support. Although again, Richard's great at what he does. But if you are a member of Discord, he hasn't asked for this yet, but I'll ping him after the live stream. If he's looking for a particular developer, I'll make an announcement on the Discord on the Ham Radio Crash Course. So do join it. And a totally unrelated plug, there is a giveaway for Saturday. So if you haven't gotten in the giveaway, being on Discord is the only way to do it. So yeah, so that's the only way to get in on that. But if you are a developer that might be interested in something like this, join the Discord and I'll post an announcement if Richard needs help or anybody that's involved in this in our Discord, which again is a private group for now. We may open it up, but that's where it's at right now, just to get the ball rolling.
Yep. And yeah, I just wanted to mention that, and also caveat, like it'll take people to, time to train, and that'll slow things down and whatnot. I mean, we already have kind of like a design by committee sort of thing going on. Everyone's like, let's do this. No, let's do this. And then let's do this. And then, but the jive is pretty good. It's amazing to have found all these people all at the same time who have been getting along so well, and we're in teams and we're like doing real work and no one's getting paid, but we're still like diligent.
I know. I was watching the stuff going back and forth in that group, and I'm like, do I have anything like an idea, like a business idea that we could all get in on, and we just take this passion and just go make money with it? Because these are like some movers and shakers, man. People had a lot of energy and they were making a lot happen, which was awesome. But
and it's crazy because I've been blogging. Like, if you look back, when I wrote about millennials are killing ham radio, one of the things ham radio really needs an injection of is hackathons, and because we already did the Maker Faire thing, that's come and gone. But like getting hackers and software engineers and people like engaged and involved, this is the first time I've ever seen a software just from the community like basically all focus on one thing at once to get something done. And obviously that's because we're in a situation we're in. Right. But if you're out there,
people are just so antsy about it. They're like, how do I solve this problem?
Yeah. I mean, you've seen, people building ventilators and face masks and the human element in addressing this pandemic is all over the place. I mean, I saw somebody, Ham, who's in charge of, or who does a lot of low power FM stuff, addressing how the virus is impacting low power FM stations. And I'm like, that's so niche, but like, also look at us. We're hams, like trying to get more testing while this is happening, which is such a tiny thing in the scope of like the world. No one knows about this, but it's something everyone here is like really into. And really like, and the 30 or so people are like trying to see through it that it gets done really quickly.
So we've got some volunteer test subjects, Ira Huff and Kyle Hurlbert. I promise, as I learn more, and I'm sure Sterling will make blogs about it, so do follow him, do follow his YouTube as well. But as we learn more, we will post more. But I think the important thing is again, going back to kind of what Sterling was saying earlier, this is ham radio doing ham radio things, right? They're trying to find a solution to a unique problem. And they did. I mean, we turned it around in a couple of weeks, which is super impressive. So going forward, I think the future, from your point of view, you'd think that this is going to be just something that happens and is an option. Maybe not immediately, but down the road some.
Yeah, sure. I think it'll be at least another 2 weeks before there's a milestone. Basically, we start getting better integrations with video conferencing and such. For our particular software. Of course, many things can happen until then that aren't related to us, to the group. But at least maybe 6 months down the road when this is starting to mature, and I guess, as long as Richard spends a lot of time on this, because he has so many other things going on, and he's a super busy guy. He's a software developer by trade, and he also builds antennas and he also does ham study, and so he's like doing all these things at once. But the virus is like, since we're all at home, he's got a lot extra time, and he realizes he was the first one. He's the OG person who like was trying to push this forward as a remote solution way before this even happened. It was just the reluctance of VECs to really like grab onto it. And now it's like basically the only way.
Unfortunately, that's often how things happen, right? People are reactive, not proactive, right? So you get a couple of people that are screaming, hey, we should do this, be proactive. That doesn't happen, and then something happens that kind of makes them react. Which is exactly what we're in. We saw numbers, I'm sure you saw the metrics, that the numbers are like massively declining for new licensees, obviously, because people can't go in person and take the tests. So that's only natural that happens, right?
But the interest is going way up because
I know.
Stick around. We want to have a hobby, or you want to get into prepping because now you realize this is a real thing that could, like, if civil unrest happens, what are we going to do? I mean, you're very familiar with that, and I think your audience is like into the whole idea of being prepared.
Yeah,
because I've seen you on the Modern Rogue.
Yeah, no, I mean Modern Rogue, but then most recently Field Time Survival. I'm assuming a lot of people that are watching right now. I got a huge uptick in just views, subscribers this month because of the human malware virus. So many people coming out saying, I want to become licensed. I want to know how to do this. And one of the big myths I think that was thought of, that Hams thought, is that all these preppers, they just want to work on Baofangs. Not at all. I've been getting more comments on how do I program and use my FT3DR. I want to get on digital mode so I can do things like JSA call, which is, works like we can transfer information. It's like a remote station almost. When I'm not operating, it captures messages. Like so many prepper-minded things that like this is exactly what radio's for. It was we're using it in that capacity, and it's fantastic. So yeah, I'm very excited about that. Sterling, you got time for taking a couple calls if anybody wants to call in? I don't know if people want to call in, but we'll just turn it on, and we'll see. There it is. There's the
if you got any ideas on how to cheat the system, let me know, because I'm kind of the person. Me and Marcel Steiber and Nick N0SSC. We're working on the documentation and such for this. So we're trying to figure out, well, how can they cheat? And obviously our software isn't matured yet, so we don't really know like what the vectors might be, but basic things like, phone under the table, giving Morse code responses, using a phone and like looking down, or using mirrors and smoke to like things like that.
My comment was, what's the microphone filter where if it's not above a certain level, it just mutes the mic?
Yeah, the noise gate.
Noise gate. So everybody's you set your noise gate really high, and then everybody's just whispering the answers to each other. And then he's like, oh yeah, I'm here, I'm listening, I'm listening. And he's just getting whispered the answers from off camera.
Yeah, and we've already, like, you can't have headphones on in the session. You can't, your phone has to be away. We're thinking about maybe using a phone as a second viewpoint. So like, you can dial into the stream or call into the video conference. So you get this like perspective from over here, and then you also get the perspective here, and then the screen share to like show that your test area is at all times clear. Oh, what else? There's, looking at making sure the VEs are watching their eyes and thinking about, like, we've thought about like putting an eye tracking software, but that's way down the road,
I mean, but not that far if you think about how far you came in such a short time. I think that's what people underestimate. You got a lot of people at home, and they're bored, and they're looking for things to do. And this happened in like a week. It was just massive, pure brain power, just dumping excess energy into this problem. And it was like, wow, okay, why can't we do that? Keep it going. And you guys have been keeping it going. So it's just amazing. I don't know. Yeah. I'm very impressed.
And it's not like, I don't want to take, I have to take like barely any credit. I did some blogging and got it popular to some eyes. But I think Richard really deserves like the round of applause for putting this together, and Sam for getting us Basecamp, and getting Ajit Pai to like actually recognize there might be a problem here. It was like the commissioner, the FCC chairman said, okay, I'll look into that. And I think there was actually a document from the FCC that says you guys can do remote testing. Like there's nothing stopping you. Yeah. And they're actually accepting waivers. So I'm starting to develop an idea of what if we can develop a waiver for like one VE, or I don't know, just maybe using testing software that's vouched for, and no VEs, like, things like that.
Yeah.
which would definitely upset the entire community to no end. But
Oh yeah. Yeah. I mean, but those are all. Why not think about that? I mean,
yeah,
to have the objective thought and then walk through the process of why that was good or bad, right? You can't just say no in whole cloth. Have a thought. But no, I think that your blogs kind of shined a light on this situation, and obviously it was the right time because people are so interested in it, because of what we're going through, which is only natural that people would be curious. What can they do more? Which I think about that. I don't know if you've thought about that, but how many people out there are now only becoming interested in ham radio, find out about it, try and go, oh, I need to go get licensed, and they're into it, right? Instead of just free banding or whatever, they're like, no, I want to go get my license, and then they're like, I can't get my license. What do I do? We're closed. And then you and I are like, exactly. Ha ha ha, turning, having fun playing with the VFO on our radios, enjoying radio, and it's like, this is the perfect time to be a radio operator when you're trapped at home, not doing anything.
Yeah, it's there's literally dozens of them, like if not dozens, hundreds, and I've seen them on Reddit, I've seen them on your chat, like they're coming out of the woodwork, and people, it actually, when I see somebody on the subreddit or on the chat like saying, how do I get a ham radio license? Oh, I'm looking into it. I'm like, oh, poor guy, poor girl. Like, well, you can't right now.
Being an engineer, I'm sure you've seen the long comic that says how to learn C++, and it's the 21 days to learn C++. And the first 20 are building a time machine and then going back in time like 5 years and learning C++, or it's like creating a clone, and then you go forward back in time, kill your clone after learning C++, but it's taken you like 5 years to learn it. All right, we got a call. Hopefully you'll be able to hear it too. I think you can. Gosh, I hope I worked this out. No, I did. I worked it out. Evan, KJ7BRE, is that you?
Yes.
Can you hear him, Sterling?
Yep.
Good. Go for it.
Okay. I can hear him too. So my thing is that I'm a student, and we do state testing using Chromebooks, and Google has kind of developed a system where they're using like a lockdown. It's essentially like locking out the entire screen from being used, so any other tabs. And it works when you boot into the computer, so you don't even sign in. You're booting into an external program that almost works as the operating system of the computer. And I'm wondering if there's been any thoughts of using a system like that.
There has been.
Definitely. Yes. I mean, so software like Pearson U, there's literally hundreds of software. There's on my blog, I posted a website that lists like hundreds of them, and there's no time to like look through all of them. But they natively like have the capability of doing things like closing extra programs, locking down Windows. If you have like, it'll prohibit like even USB drives. They do the eye tracking thing as well. An actual operating system that locks it down is great, but the logistics of getting everyone to a Chromebook or a specific Linux distribution or a live CD even, like, I mean, maybe a live CD would work, or a live bootable thing, but there's a lot of learning and to that.
Actually, a live CD is a good idea, but then you think everybody's got a laptop that doesn't have CD-ROMs anymore.
Yeah, and then Linux won't work with a webcam or something, or a USB stick, but
we send everybody a Raspberry Pi. We'll get KM4ACK on this. We'll have him solve the problem. He'll make a Raspberry Pi image that only does ham radio testing.
So yeah, we're definitely thinking about it. And I don't know. I don't think the software. So the exam tool software is strictly inside the browser. It's JavaScript, like Vue, and it's built on Vue and Angular, I think, are the technologies behind it. I'm not a software engineer by any means, so I don't know what I'm talking about. But I'm just regurgitating words. So it won't have the ability to do much of that. All of that will be on the burden of the VE to like tell the candidate to shut down all your programs, turn on the do not disturb, all that stuff. So for our software specifically.
At the same time, again, this is incremental steps, right? It's not like we're gonna just force everybody to do this. This is like, if you had to create a process to get to that point, there's no reason why you couldn't tell somebody, hey, you're gonna install this software. You're going to join this proctoring session. It will need admin access or whatever to lock down your computer. If you want to use a laptop or Chromebook or whatever, that would be just part of the hoops you'd have to go through if you were a part of this first round of solutions, I guess, for how you might do online tests or remote testing. Pure remote testing is what we're talking about. Yeah.
Right.
So Evan, what was there any other question, comment?
No, that's all that I was thinking of. We didn't have state testing this year. I can say that, but that those thoughts came back to me because school and all that. It's like, oh, we use for state testing. It's kind of how all that works here. So
I was actually surprised. I got news that the GRE is going remote.
Yes.
And for an exam that is locked down, like you have to go into a specific place, get on a specific computer, and do specific things, and you're like regimented. There's no you're padded down for phone. It's like really, really strict. And I've taken it a couple times, but now they're going online. I'm like, how are they doing this? There's no way.
Yeah.
There can't be a way, but there is a way, and they can't stop GRE testing because that will impact the entire academic and economy. It's like an essential service, so they had to find that way.
Right.
And we're just doing it for fun.
Well, we're important, Sterling. Sterling, we're important.
We're important.
We're important. All right, Evan, I got a couple more calls, buddy. Thanks for calling in again. I appreciate the support. You're always like the first and last to call in. I appreciate it, buddy. Take it easy, man.
Yeah, you too. Bye.
See ya.
Yep.
Good guy, that Evan. All right, I got another caller here. Hey, new caller, what's your name? Do you have a call sign?
My name is Josh. My call sign is KE0HUH.
HUH. Good name. Good first name you got there. Go ahead, Josh.
So with the remote testing here, part of the thing, I do IT for a living. So is there any thoughts on putting like a VPN tunnel so that you guys can monitor network traffic to make sure that there's no other, nothing else being accessed?
Sure.
Yeah, I haven't had that thought specific. I actually think I saw that roll through chat at some point.
Yeah, write it down, Sterling. Write it down.
VPN access network. I got my pin. That would. That's like getting into the weeds of like the very very esoteric ways of how cheating could occur.
Well, you'd have the proctor and the individual join the same quote unquote VPN.
Yeah.
Right. There'd be like a private LAN that they join, and then you'd give some kind of rights or access from the proctor to the testee. Again, you'd have to have some software on the client station to make that work. But these are all in the realm of possibilities for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so I specifically didn't think about it, but because I'm not a software engineer, but I guarantee you somebody on the team, and Josh has brought that up.
Very good, Josh. Any other questions?
Thank you.
Nope, that's all I had. Thank you.
All right, good first name and good call. I like that suffix there. Huh?
Hmm?
It was pretty cool.
Was that random or did you pick that?
No, I got that when I passed my technician.
Pretty good. Right on.
Nice.
All right, Josh, take it easy, man.
It's like the license plates that accidentally spell things.
Yeah, I know. Those are funny.
Yeah.
Okay, we got another new caller. What's your name? And if you have a call sign, give it to me.
Patrick, W1PAC.
W1PAC.
I know you.
How's it going?
Hey, Sterling. How are you?
Good.
Hey, Josh. My question is, do you think the VECs will get on board with all the VECs will get on board with the remote online testing?
Good question.
I feel like they would have to simply if one or two of them adopt this, because we all know that the VECs tout their numbers. And if there was something that would particularly give an advantage from one VEC to another VEC, they would pursue it.
Yeah,
that's just
I
human
agree.
nature.
And if I was going to say if say the national cooperation, the NCVEC, develops guidelines for doing remote testing, then that basically trickles down into all of them. I do believe that some will hold out. There are some VECs that are very small. The MOCAN, Missouri Kansas VEC, I think I don't know if they've given an exam in like a year. Like they're still accredited, and they apparently give exams in like Hardee's, and they test like 2 or 3 people a year. But it's just a few people, very, very like low rate. I don't even know how like they came to be, honestly. I need to look into more of the history of how VECs are formed. And actually, we thought about putting our own VEC together, but the FCC process of getting accredited, and basically you have to have an open window, and now might be a good time for it, but it's more of a pain, and it's much better to try to persuade, or at least not persuade, but just give the VECs an opportunity of software to use. I think the W5YI is definitely on board, and they're I'm almost certain going to be like the first adopters of whatever we create. ARRL VEC is really interested in remote testing, but they're going to go through their own process, spend their own money, do their own research to determine a solution. You have the GLARG, out in California.
That's right, the GLARG.
GLLARG. I think they're a little more modern too. But I've noticed some back from Laurel, a lot of resistance on their Facebook page. There's quite a bit of,
salt.
like
It's salt. It's like
a lot of
saltiness.
salt, like saying we're not doing it, and it's a bad idea. So just hold on. Like if you go to their Facebook page, you'll see.
I think that was my favorite. No means no.
Yeah. And I also posted on my blog, and it's still going. But I think they will too change their ways and their points of their opinions if we make this a real big thing. And get more VEs on board. So it will be an adoption process that'll start probably from the top down, I think.
So. Yeah, I think you're right. Okay. All right. Patrick, any other questions?
Nope, that was all I had.
All right.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks for calling in, man. See ya. Did I have another new caller? Is this first-time caller? What's your name?
Yeah, my name's Chris, KE0WCR.
Did you say Bruce?
Chris.
Oh, Chris. Sorry about that.
Yeah. Oh, that's all right.
And you said KE0 what?
Whiskey Charlie Romeo.
Whiskey Charlie Romeo. All
Oh,
right,
you
thank
didn't
you.
get that, Josh?
Yeah,
First
man. How's it going, Chris?
You got a good contesting.
I'm curious. Well, I wanted to say, first of all, thank you for the videos. It helped me get my general and my tech. I just got my general on the 9th of last month.
Mm-hmm.
As far as the online testing, and the cheating, talking about people cheating, I don't know if anybody's thought about this, but most people honestly just learn the questions and then learn the rest of it as they're working.
Great point.
So is that such a big deal, really? I mean...
No.
Yeah.
And I don't want to use...
But yes
for,
and no, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, so the reality is, yeah, there is a certain, and I always drop the sanctity of radio kind of thing. There is a certain level of decorum we want to hold. I don't want to take anything away from that. I really don't. I'd like to keep it at a high level as much as possible. I just think technology's evolved in such a way that we can keep it at that level. At the same time, you are completely accurate when you say most people just memorize the questions.
Mm-hmm.
And that's something you can do for technician and probably even general. And I'm sure there's a
Ironically,
couple people that did it for extra.
It's kind of ironic that the guy in ham study is kind of at the core of that, because it's just a flashcard type thing.
Oh, yeah.
Where you memorize the questions, and he's the one working on all this thing. I think, for the technician exams especially, like, it's not too hard to memorize the questions or at least see the trends. I have my own opinions. I agree with Josh. There is a reason why we're the amateur radio service, and I think the proper way to really be a ham is to get involved and learn some electronics and be able to contribute and communicate like on the same playing field. And that's why we take a test, is so we're all, we all have the same kind of background knowledge, and we're not like stupefied when we we realize we don't understand what a repeater is. But as you go up higher in level, I think general is a little harder to memorize some of the questions, and extra is just, it's 750 questions. The people who memorize that, there are definitely people who do that, but to actually understand what you're putting into your brain by memorizing is another aspect. And you hold those people to a certain level, like an extra. Ooh, they're an extra. They know a lot about electronics. They could solve some circuits problems, maybe. They might be an electrical engineer, but also they could just be very good memorizers. So I'm not trying to yuck anybody's yum, I think learning via memorization is perfectly fine, especially for people who choose to, they don't want to get into it, or they just want to get the license for the license. That's okay. It's not harming ham radio, I don't think, unless they're actually harming ham radio, or doing
Right.
something
Right.
illegal. But yeah, I do think and on that note, with like, what to really answer your question, am I really worried about cheating because most people already just know the answers? That's a good point in terms of like feeding it into the, like, my opinion that I'm less worried about cheaters than I am like training VEs and making sure they run the test session accurately and or correctly, if you will. I don't think cheating is going to be a huge deal. If it was, we'd see it right now. We would see it right now in Canada and Great Britain, where they already do online testing to a greater degree.
It's important to keep
Right.
saying that over and over again because they are already doing it, right?
Right.
If this is a problem, wouldn't there be more people complaining about it? Like, wouldn't we know that this is a thing, right? That this is, people are out there cheating, or if they figured it out, which, how would you not figure it out? Wouldn't they discontinue the use of online testing? Right? Like, how long do they have to do it before we go, oh no, like, this is a thing that works for them, why can't it work for us? There's no reason not to ask that question.
Yeah.
I
had another point, but it totally flew out of my head. Go ahead.
Even though I went ahead, I took a class for my general and read the book and all of those things. For me, once the test was over, I go back to the book almost constantly still, and looking up in my ARRL manual for things almost constantly. And it's to me, it was just knowing how to get the information I need when I need it, I guess.
Very good. Well, thank you for calling in. Appreciate that.
Thank you for
I like the chat. Chris. Will Sterling's online testing be open to everyone? It's not my testing.
Yeah, Sterling.
I'm just writing.
Why are you keeping us from your testing, Sterling? Why aren't you giving us your testing? This is a name I recognize. I'm going to jump the queue a little bit and pull you in, and then we'll get to the other callers. So, Sterling, you got time, right? We're good?
Yeah.
Okay.
Totally.
Ethan.
Ooh, line unmuted. Great. Hey, guys. So I was just seeing a bunch of questions in the chat, and I've actually seen this quite a bit. A lot of people are asking, you actually just spoke to the previous caller kind of on this subject, and that's, why does a ham radio test need any of this kind of testing or any of this at all? And I don't know if you guys, obviously I have my answers to that question, but maybe you guys could speak to, where do these requirements that, this isn't just an online testing requirement, a lot of these are actually kind of the existing requirements that VECs try to meet that we are now translating into an online thing. And I feel like a lot of people are just very confused as to, why does ham radio need all of these? So maybe you can speak to where those requirements come from, why we have them, as far as, why do we need 3 people? Why do we need to make sure they're not cheating? Like, why is it such a big deal? So, yeah.
I'll let Sterling dive in on that one as far as where the questions come from.
I wrote this down somewhere, like a really good explanation, and we answered some of that in the last question, where we're trying to get on the playing field and everyone has a certain technical expertise and all of that. So the real foundation, the whole reason for amateur radio, goes back to like the days of Hiram Percy Maxim and the 1900s, when like we were forming this service, like the FCC, or really not even before the FCC was a thing. They formed a service that is for persons with interest in wireless technology to advance and recreate in that realm. And the idea was that everybody who does that is basically a nerd who does electronics, builds antennas, builds spark gaps, and communicates with other people who do the same exact thing everywhere. Now, it's been a century since then, so things have changed a lot, and that's why this question is coming up. Is there really a need for testing? Can't I just go buy a license? And I think I don't want to I'll be the crotchety old in the corner and say no, because we still need amateur radio to be that kind of gateway drug to like electrical engineering and science and wireless technology, even though like it's really losing its relevancy. And we just saw RSGB posted a video of a person who was interviewed regarding that, and how do we keep it up, and in the next steps, like in the future, we're in the right now, actually, the Internet of Things and interconnecting everything with radio. We have an opportunity to be like at the state of the art, at the bleeding edge.
Right.
But because we're basically stuck in 1970 with paper testing and single sideband and doing everything like we did a long time ago, it's really hard to catch up, and it's really also hard to develop the appeal for ham radio for young people, especially when you say you got to take a test, and not just youth, but also just new people in general.
I would add to that a couple of things. The first is that radio frequencies are a finite resource, right? There's only so many spaces that we can actually be on, because we all have to share this space, and that's just the reality of the science behind why radio exists. So we've got to understand those, and there are very real repercussions if you break those agreements. People will come and find you and take your equipment. Two, if you want a license-free situation, you go get an FRS radio or get a GMRS license. You don't have to learn anything. You just pay the money and you get it.
Right.
Why?
You can do a lot of
you're not going to hurt yourself with it. That's the reality.
And then also the ISM bands, I'll mention those. If you're actually doing experimentation, all of this mesh hardware stuff that you might see is totally in the ISM bands, because they use encryption, and this is like 2.4 or 5.8 license-free bands with under Part 15.
So our privileges, to go back to that for a second, our privileges, and at the technician level, allow you access to some pretty powerful stuff that you could hurt yourself with and hurt others. So there is a safety aspect to the questions and the answers that you're supposed to know.
Absolutely.
Right? As a technician, you get access to microwave level bands. Could you hurt somebody with that? Sure, you could. Put enough power behind a 70-centimeter antenna that's too close to people. You could hurt them. So there are practical things to know, right?
Yeah, you could also hurt people through, if you interfere with police or EMS, and you unknowingly, you could cause actual harm, immediate harm. So to people you don't even know.
It's a statement of understanding, right? Understand that FRS, GMRS license or radios are locked to channels. When you hop on amateur radio, you get access to. You get more freedoms, more privileges to access certain frequencies, certain spaces, power, stuff like that. Am I trying to say that we must have a test to be able to qualify you as being capable of doing that? No, I'm not saying that. I'm saying that is where we're at right now. That's all it is. Where we're at right now is that reality, and there are people that want to play in that reality, and that's what we're talking about right now. I don't know that we're at the problem of, or at the point of where we can fundamentally change the philosophical understanding of every American. I don't think we're there politically. I think we're at the point of hey, here's our game that we know, and we're trying to play that game. I think. Yeah, I mean, that's what I would say. Yeah. What would you say, Ethan?
No, I think that I'm in the same place as you guys, that it is kind of where we're at right now. But I also think that it is a very highly technical hobby that the entire purpose of it isn't simply to communicate with your friend down the street. That's not what ham radio is about. It is, but that's not it. And if that's all you want to do, grab yourself a couple radios from Walmart, or some GMRS radios, which honestly will perform just as good as any Baofeng you can buy anywhere, and talk to your friend down the street or down the block or a couple miles away, and you're good to go. It's a bit more to it. It's more to it than just simply communicating. Yeah.
Well, I think you got it. I'll leave that point. Did a good job, Ethan.
The best argument for testing hams
Thanks,
is
guys.
CB.
Thank you, Ethan.
Thank you.
Appreciate
Thanks
all
for
the
all
help.
the work that you're doing on it. I love looking at Basecamp and just going, this is ridiculous. I wish I had this much drive in my day job.
I know. How do we
awesome.
use these
awesome.
amazing people and this energy?
It's so exciting.
All right, Ethan, take it easy, man.
All right. Thanks, guys.
All right, let's see. We got a lot of callers actually. First time caller. First time caller, are you there? What's your name?
Yep, Zach, otherwise known as Loyal.
Zach, how's it going, man? All right.
Pretty good.
Back-to-back admins right now on the Discord. Everybody go join our Discord, by the way. Okay, Zach, what are you thinking?
So I want to bring up some of the points that people said for like long term and stuff like this.
Mm-hmm.
If let's say the world does go back to normal tomorrow, this could still be used long term. Because I don't know if you remember, but in the early days of the HRCC Discord, we had a member that was bedridden and couldn't leave his house. Really,
That's right.
his doctors even came to him. So he ended up using an SDR to listen to local repeaters, and we found on the Facebook group 2 VEs, and he found one via listening to local repeaters that were willing to go to his house, and he got his tech via that. Remote testing in the future could be used for those type of people who can't physically leave, even if the world does tomorrow go back to normal.
Yep, I think that's a good point.
Yeah, that was the impetus for Anchorage. Well, besides the fact that Alaska is so big, that's another one of their things that they tick the box of, like disabled people who just can't get out of their house, or it's far too difficult of a situation to get themselves to a session, and rather have people come to them. And I feel like even in that situation, I think the ARRL also tested somebody from Alaska, because they're in Alaska, and they did that totally remotely.
Mm-hmm.
I don't remember the actual details, if they had VEs on site or if it was all online. But yeah, this would be like the answer to that. And it will definitely keep going in the future, but I wanted to see it as the option for everyone. Like if somebody off the street wants to get a ham radio license and they see if you go to the ARRL or to any VEC, you'll see exam sessions kind of listed, and you'll see like a parentheses online for one of these exams, and you can select that option, or you can go down the street to your library and get tested on their weekly thing. It's just it's up to you, right?
Yeah.
But it would save a lot of consternation and trouble, and get a lot more of disabled people, bedridden people on the air as well.
Yeah.
Which is great. So yeah, it'll definitely be used for that.
Good stuff. Good point.
Future.
Good point, Zach.
Mm-hmm. And on the point of people cheating, right now, just talking to the VECs, they're having issues of VEs being in separate rooms of VEs not being present at all.
Mm-hmm.
So that's just basically an open book for people to cheat. At least here, if someone does cheat, we have an audit trail that if someone questions it, we have the video saying, here's the proof.
Great point. Yeah, because you can save all the video, right? Of course.
Mm-hmm. I actually talked about this with Richard. It's that remote exams would be far more secure than the actual than in-person exams, because the only thing you need to prove to the FCC that this person has a license or has done his or her examination is a CSCE with 3 signatures on it and the signature of the tester and all the information filled out. You could forge that. One person could forge that and send it in. You got to go through VEC, but if you had 3 VEs under the table, that's still a thing, and that's obviously the hugest thing. But in a remote, or the hugest thing for testing in-person testing, because it's all done pen and paper.
Mm-hmm.
But in remote, it's DocuSign. You can cryptographically verify this person signed this based on the credentials given at in DocuSign or HelloSign or whatever protocol or system. All the CCs are also hashed, and magic is sprinkled into it to basically say this is definitely 100% a legitimate person who signed this, and almost definitely a legitimate certificate of completed examination. So it'll actually improve security.
I think so.
Yeah, and we can open it up to 24/7 because the VEs don't need to be live. Then they can come back and watch the recording later and sign off on that.
Oh, that's another thought.
That is a thought. Actually,
that might be a couple steps down the line, but why not, right?
Yeah.
They have to
Everything's
just be
on the table.
accepted. Huh. Damn, Loyal. That's pretty good.
And on one other note, we are looking for 1 to 2 devs. They have to already be secured in either Vue.js or have some Angular experience. The backend stuff we have pretty much done right now. We're doing this all via website. Richard doesn't want to Richard wants someone with experience because it'll take you longer to catch up than what we need you for. So if you're already somewhat experienced in that, give me a DM on Discord. I'm Loyal on Discord. And I'll match you up with Richard only if you have Vue experience or Angular experience.
Good. Very good. Ed Sweeney and Asif, you guys missed the point if you think that what Loyal was saying was it would be recorded. It wouldn't be approved. It would be recorded, and then a VE could view it after the fact. we're not proposing that right now. That's future stuff, but it's a
Mhm.
great point. It's people thinking about the future, which is what we want. So, Loyal, good stuff. I appreciate that.
Yeah, thanks a lot. Thanks a lot.
All right, Loyal, we got one more call. I'll let you go, and then we'll take this last call. It's a new caller. All right? Thanks, Loyal. Oh, I think you might have. Okay, thank you. All right, last caller. New caller. What's your name here, and do you have a call sign?
My name is Don, and basically sitting here going over the technician questions as I'm watching you, trying to learn it all. So I'm happy you
Awesome.
guys are thinking about doing it online and getting that up and going, because I can't find anything here and where I'm at now really to get any testing going. So it's a perfect idea.
Right on.
Yeah, thank you.
So do you have any idea how long it will take to actually get it up? Or
Yeah, I mean, so my professional opinion, my expert opinion, it's not really an expert opinion. I don't know if what we have going on will be completely finished and basically adopted by the VECs before, this whole thing blows over. Like, I wouldn't imagine it would still require a few months of really keeping this kind of development cycle up. Especially with trying to get the Jitsi integration, the web conferencing integration, and stuff. There's also the documentation and testing it.
Entry notice off.
But obviously, we've already surpassed what I expected. So who knows? I think I've gotten rumors and kind of hints that about 2 weeks there's probably an idea that there will be some beta testing, and then maybe a few weeks after that we can start taking callers, right? But at a very slow rate. But those are totally numbers I just pulled out of thin air. Don't quote me on that. Don't start emailing me and lining up to sign up. For
Sterling said.
Obviously.
Sterling said.
right.
Yeah, that means it's real. I mean, when we're ready, we'll put an application. Well, when we're ready, we'll just say VECs, hey, here you go. We're done. It's up to the VECs to say, okay, we're taking applicants for online testing, just like Anchorage is right now. But they do it on their own way, obviously. So we
just out of
basically
curiosity,
go ahead.
What's a VEC?
Volunteer Examiner Coordinator. So it goes with
Okay.
you have the FCC at the top, who defines the rules for the service. They say that there is this volunteer examination system, which is comprised of a VEC, which is a body of volunteer examiners, VEs. The VEC kind of controls and serves as the liaison to the FCC to submit exams, and they also control the documentation and stuff. And the VEs are the actual examiners. They're the ones who proctor the exam and fill out the paperwork and submit it to the VEC, if that makes any sense. So, and I think there was a question earlier about why is this all in place? And I have no flipping idea, because these rules were created in the 60s, 50s, 40s, 70s, and updated here and there when, paper and stuff was the norm. So I don't know why we have three VEs. Maybe it's because back in the day there were always so many candidates, but it's kind of silly to have three VEs and then one candidate. For some, I've been to a couple sessions as a VE myself where we just tested one person. I'm like, great, we're done. Now what?
Yeah. Well, all right.
Okay. Great. Well, thanks.
All
Appreciate
right.
your show here. Having a good time watching you guys. You guys take care.
All right.
Yeah,
take
too.
it easy.
Stay healthy.
All right. We have a couple more calls. You got a couple more in you, Sterling, or
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm totally. I still have water in my bottle. So.
Okay. Aiden,
Or beer.
KE5MOW.
Hello. I think online testing would be a great thing. I'm just going to put it there. It would actually enable my brother to finally get his test done, because he's just been busy when normal test sessions are anywhere local to us. And it would possibly enable my parents who are disabled to get their tests done.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. One of the thoughts I had is busy people, busy lives. Even when I took my license test 11, 12, almost 12 years ago, my extra test, and I've been a ham for about 13 or 14. I had to renew at some point a couple years ago. And even then, I had sessions all over the place, but they were they were on Tuesday nights, and I still had to drive 60 miles, and I was only 16 or 15 at the time, and I had to get my parents to do it. I lived out in the boonies, so in Missouri, in Warrenton, Missouri, which is 60 miles outside of St. Louis, which is, for a 15-year-old kid, a long drive, like huge drive. Even if I had my driver's license, I wouldn't have done that. Like I would have been too nervous. So this would be an enabler for people who are just like, who are also too busy. Because now in this time and age, like everyone has 1,000 things going on. And to try to like squeeze in a test session is a challenge when you got other evening activities that you already have planned, especially for like busy parents and kids who have like practice and whatnot all day long and all night long, 2-a-days and etc. So yeah, if you could just have an ad hoc, like I would really love this to enable, like basically you go into a lobby and you say, I want to test now, and then VEs are notified. You get 3 together into a chat and you just boom, do it right there. And this is what we did in college. When we had a VE team, we had an email list, and we'd say, email us if you want a VE test, and we'll try to get it done in a couple, hours or so, just to avoid the barrier and keep the flexibility up to, or be flexible for people's schedules and situations.
Quick shout out to Brad Aquilin. Thank you for the super chat. I didn't catch that earlier. Thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you very much. All right, go ahead. Yeah, sorry, Aiden.
I have one more question. Is there going to be an after chat for this stream?
Well, geez, you're stealing my thunder. I'll hop into the Discord a little bit after this. It won't be a long thing, though, because I'm going to go hang out with the family and the kids. Yeah, but this is a very important event, and Sterling was available to do this chat, thankfully. So we wanted to make this happen tonight because a lot has happened. So, yeah. So, okay. Thank you, Aiden.
When the Discord after chat thing happens, I need some help with basically a CW beacon I'm making for 2 meters.
We'll start posting over there now. There's probably already people in there, so go check it out.
Yeah.
All right. See ya.
Cool.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. We got one more. This is the last. Thank you, Sterling, for hanging on.
No problem. You just have to, apologize to my wife.
Okay. I am sorry, Sterling's wife. I apologize.
I've been so busy with stuff, like it's just like I've been neglecting her, so I've canceled all my weekend plans to just hang out with her and veg out.
Good. That's nice.
So, well, my plans were canceled anyway because of the virus. So.
Well, yeah.
I'll use it as I'm trying not to use it as too much of a
Honey, I did this for you. New caller, first time caller. What's your name?
Hey, my name is Jim.
Hey, Jim. You have a call yet?
I'm watching you guys for a long time, and actually, my question is, and maybe you've already covered this if I missed it, but I have a bunch of friends that have gone online and have bought the dreaded Baofeng radios. And now that they're all at home, they're coming to me because they know that I have just my basic technician license. They're saying, hey, I'd like to get my license and use these things legitimately. But the problem is now is that I would normally send them to a bunch of different surrounding towns that had, the qualified examiners to do these tests for them. And now they're even starting to read rumors about, there's possibly, I can get the test done online. I could do that. And I just don't know what to tell them right now. And just, I don't want them to start keying up and just, creating trouble. I just didn't know if you guys had any advice on what I could tell them or, just kind of basically how to get them to be patient and, let the process, work its way out.
There's not a lot of options right now. That's the truth. I mentioned the Warren County Radio Club is doing a drive-through session. Those are for people in New York that can figure that out. I tried to go to their website. I didn't see it. Anchorage VEC, obviously, as Sterling mentioned, is one way to go. But, again, sign up and wait because they've probably got a list a mile long now.
Yeah, and you have to have your in-person proctor before you even sign up. So you got to do your homework there.
Yeah. The real answer is we don't have a solution. The human malware virus hit us all equally hard and unprepared in certain instances, and this is one of the areas in amateur radio where it hit, and we weren't prepared.
Right. And as far as I can tell, there's no VEC willing just to do, get on Zoom, show you an exam or read it out or anything at this moment. I think everyone's talking about it, and there's plans being generated, but we were obviously the first to kind of erupt and start working on a software solution. In the next few weeks, there might be a totally new change where a VEC we haven't even heard about publishes an online exam system. So who knows? So either Anchorage or Warren County or wait. And like I said earlier, it's a perfect opportunity if you've been doing good on your technician exam. Perfect opportunity to study for your general. Yeah, because that's where the action's at.
Yeah. Well, that's what I'm doing on my end for sure. Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, and because you can get a 2-for-1 if you pass the technician, you can take the general for free.
Yep. And the extra,
Or
technically,
extra.
if you pass
Yeah,
it.
if you pass the general too.
I will mention, if there's any VECs out there or clubs out there that are doing something new and interesting, or want to get some information out there, contact me. Contact me at hoshnasi@gmail.com. My stuff is all in the description. You can get me on Twitter, Instagram, the Discords, obviously, or the Facebook group. You can find me if you want to. But I would love to get information out there. If somebody's doing something new and interesting, or they've got some testing option available in this, difficult time, happy to get the word out for you. So let me know. And yeah, Jim, any final thoughts there?
Well, I would just say, thank you for taking my call, and thank you for just continuing to create content. Do this when we're all stuck at home. It's great to be able to watch videos and just continue to learn about the hobby. And I'm always every day is a day to learn something new. And I just appreciate you both, and I hope you stay safe. And I'll keep watching.
All right, thank you, appreciate it.
Doing our best.
All right.
I mean, we're bored too. What else are we gonna do?
Yeah. Well, very good, Sterling. I'm glad you hopped on, and you're a wealth of knowledge in this area. So I want to remind everybody, and I'll come back to you in a second, Sterling. Make sure to hit up his YouTube channel, N0SSC. Just Google him or YouTube that. I guess you can do that too. And then obviously he's got a great blog out there that you can find, N0SSC's Ham Radio blog. So make sure to check him out on there. And like I said, he pretty much live streams every day, which is pretty cool. So you can follow him that way. But any final thoughts, Sterling? I think we covered it, hopefully. For now, anyway. Who knows what 2 weeks is going to do, right?
Well, I think the final thought is the Ron Paul, it's happening!
It's happening!
Stuff is happening! Everything is happening all at once, and I don't know what I don't know. I think in the next few weeks, like in 2 weeks from now, everything will change. I mean, the virus might get worse, it might get better, who knows, but we're still going to be isolating, I think. And I think in terms of ham radio testing, we'll see something new. I'm not like concealing any information. I'm delivering information as soon as it is available. And if it's like, we all agree like it's a publicly, thing, like, because we don't want to expulge too much and be like, oh, we have, done 15 tests. Oh, why aren't you testing me? It's like, no.
Yes.
As long as I can, as long as I have information flowing into me, even from Anchorage, I'm talking to Brandon quite a bit and getting a pulse on what they're doing. And he told me today, like, their wait times are about 3 weeks, and they have a 60 person backlog, just because I think their numbers are lower, just because they need the in-person proctor, which can be a challenge right now. So, but it's also a challenge for them because they're only used to doing 1 or 2 a week. So yeah, check me out on my channel if you want to learn Morse code, which is also a perfect opportunity if you're at home.
Oh yeah.
I'm really bad at teaching Morse code, but I'm just kind of journaling my journey through, like, trying to get proficient at it. And right now I know all the characters, but I'm really, really bad at it. And sometimes I do funny stuff, like put a green screen on my last stream, like, just because I was like, let's do that.
It works perfect. You're keyed in perfectly right now. You look great. So good work on that.
Yeah.
All right.
And then, and then N0SSC.com. That's my deets, and I'm sticking to it.
All right. Very good. Sterling, thanks again for coming on. Thank everybody, appreciate everybody watching. And I will be doing a live stream on Saturday, so don't worry, nothing's changed in that. And we'll be talking about Ham Shack tools and convenience items that you'd want to have in your Ham Shack. And I have a whole wealth of recommendations in that area for those of you that maybe you're at home and you're putting your first Ham Shack together, or you're looking for cool, interesting things that you can add to your Ham Shack that you're already doing. So that's what we'll be talking about, and I'll be posting the event for that, which will then go live eventually. So make sure you subscribe to both of us if you haven't, and make sure you click that thumbs up for this chat. And yeah, again, Sterling, thank you very much for coming on.
No, thank you. Like, this has been a pleasure. It's really good to get the word out in a place where, a whole bunch of people is going to see it. I only get maybe, half, even on my blog, I get half as many eyeballs, but just know, like, there's a lot of people working on it, and you can get into the fold too. Like, keep pressuring your VECs to, like, do remote testing.
That's a good point. Why don't you send a message to your VECs and nicely, guys, nicely.
Not to the FCC. Everyone's like, I want to.
Oh yeah, the FCC's already said, yeah, do it, go, run.
It's just the VECs, like, just say, like, hey, there's remote testing that's available. Like, any VEC right now could just open Zoom up, get somebody in and test them, and if they think that's legitimate, then it's legitimate. I don't think there's going to be any crazy litigation, or the FCC is going to be like, no, this is bad. The VEC is going to do their due diligence and try to follow the rules. They're definitely not trying to skirt anything, right? Yeah. So yeah, it's been a huge pleasure. Thank you so much for having me, and I hope everyone out there is staying safe and healthy.
Me too. Yes, please, everybody. Okay, that'll do it for me. I'm Josh, KI6NAZ. This is the Ham Radio Crash Course. We'll talk to you again soon. See ya.